Hey everyone, welcome to Life Reflections. Today I'm sharing a life story that might just hit home for you. If you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to join me for more moments that matter. Let's dive in.
My husband announced he was leaving me in the middle of our son's graduation party, but he didn't know I had already prepared his downfall. I always believed that life had a way of balancing things out. That for every heartbreak, there'd be a new beginning. For every betrayal, a lesson. For every storm, eventually, peace. But what I didn't expect was that my storm, the one that would tear apart 25 years of marriage, love, and loyalty, would come wearing a tuxedo and holding a champagne flute in front of 60 people. My name is Rachel Brooks. I'm 50 years old, a mother, a businesswoman, and until a few months ago, I was a wife. A faithful one. A committed one. The kind who remembers birthdays without a Facebook reminder and still irons his shirts out of habit, even after he stopped noticing. The day it all changed was supposed to be one of celebration. Our son, Jake, had just graduated from high school, top of his class, early acceptance to NYU. He was the kind of kid who worked 2 summer jobs and still made it home for Sunday dinner. I was proud. So proud. We'd booked the rooftop at the Langston, this classy hotel downtown with views of the bay and string lights that made the whole place feel like a fairy tale. I wore a sky blue dress Jake had helped me pick out. Ethan, my husband, looked dashing in his gray suit. We looked like the perfect family. I remember clinking my glass with Jake's, our eyes locking, both of us beaming. That kind of smile that comes from watching your child grow into everything you ever hoped they'd become. Then Ethan tapped his glass. It was that sharp, delicate sound that cuts through a room. The kind people hear and immediately hush. The DJ even turned down the music. All eyes turned to Ethan. Even Jake, who was halfway through a bite of crab cake. I assumed he was going to give a toast. Maybe talk about how proud he was. Maybe joke about how Jake got his brains from me and his stubborn streak from him. The usual. Instead, Ethan smiled, and the first words out of his mouth weren't congratulations or I love you. They were. I've decided to move on. From this life. From this marriage. I'm leaving Rachel. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was suffocating. No one moved. No one breathed. I felt the champagne glass slip slightly in my hand, but I didn't let it fall. My vision blurred for half a second, like my brain was buffering, trying to catch up to the absurdity of the moment. People gasped. Jake dropped his fork. My sister grabbed the edge of the table like she might faint. But I smiled. A slow, terrifyingly calm smile. Because while Ethan thought he was delivering the final blow of some grand betrayal, what he didn't know, what he could never have imagined, was that I had seen this coming for months. And I was ready. That morning, before the party, I had stood in front of the mirror, looked myself dead in the eyes, and whispered, "Today is his moment. But tomorrow? Tomorrow will be mine." Ethan had mistaken my silence over the past months for ignorance. He thought my quiet dinners and soft smiles meant I hadn't noticed the perfume on his shirts, the hotel receipts, the random charges from a yoga studio across town, the one where she worked. Mandy. 28. Long legs. Big eyes. Zero integrity. But this wasn't just a story about a husband who cheated with a younger woman. No. That's too simple. This was about a man who underestimated a woman he thought was too tired to fight. What Ethan didn't know was that I had already contacted a lawyer. Already made copies of bank statements. Already uncovered the hidden account he used to fund getaways with Mandy. And the prenup? Oh, the beautiful, beautiful prenup he had insisted on when I was the one with money, back when he was fresh out of grad school and I had already made my first 100,000. There was a clause. An infidelity clause. And the moment he cheated, I became the owner of 70% of everything. Including the house. the investments. Even the beach cabin he thought was off the books. So when he stood there, in front of our friends, family, and our son, proudly announcing that he was starting fresh, I let him feel the spotlight. I let him drown in it. Then I stood up, walked calmly to my purse, pulled out an ivory envelope, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Since we're making announcements, this is for you." I placed it gently in his hand, as if I were handing over a birthday card. Inside was the full divorce packet. Signed. Dated. With evidence. Bank records. Photos. Emails. A copy of the prenup. And a letter from my attorney stating the assets had been frozen, effective 8 a.m. that morning. I leaned in slightly and whispered, "You picked the wrong day to pretend you were in control." Then I turned to my son. Jake, eyes wide, still processing, looked like he'd just watched a grenade explode in slow motion. I kissed his forehead and said, "I'm so proud of you. And no matter what happens, this day is still yours. Don't let anyone take it from you." And then, I walked out. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I let my heels echo on the marble floor like a countdown to Ethan's reckoning. And as the heavy glass doors closed behind me, the June wind hit my face, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I could breathe. Behind me, I heard the party crumble into chaos. Ethan's voice rose in panic. But I kept walking. That was the day he lost everything. And I found myself again. 2 years ago, I would have laughed if someone told me Ethan would cheat on me. Not my Ethan, the man who spent every Sunday mowing the lawn, who made pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse for Jake when he was 5. The man who held my hand through my miscarriage and whispered, "We'll try again. Together." But love doesn't just vanish overnight. It erodes, drip by drip, until one day you wake up and realize you're lying next to a stranger who doesn't even know what your favorite coffee is anymore. The first crack came in January. It was cold, even for Charleston. Jake was still on winter break, sleeping in, binge-watching old Marvel movies. Ethan said he had a client dinner across town, wouldn't be back until late. Nothing new. He had a lot of late nights lately. I was going through our year-end finances. Just something I'd done every year, old habit from when I was the breadwinner. At first, everything looked fine. Until I saw a $420 charge to Solstice Jewelry in Atlanta. We don't live in Atlanta. We don't buy jewelry. And Ethan sure as hell hadn't given me anything sparkly since our 15th anniversary, and even then, it was a charm bracelet he picked up last minute at Target. I stared at that line on the statement for a long time. Then I saw another charge, the Garden Room, a ridiculously expensive restaurant in Buckhead. 2 guests. $268. The next day, a hotel. 2 nights. Under his name. It hit me like a dull thud in my chest. But I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I printed it out. Slipped it into a file folder. Labeled it in neat black Sharpie, just in case. That folder became my quiet obsession. Over the next few weeks, I became an archaeologist in my own life, digging through bank records, airline confirmations, credit card points, redemptions. Ethan had gotten sloppy. Or maybe he thought I was too distracted. Too old. Too naive. And then came the iPad. One night, I walked into the living room and saw it glowing on the couch. He had fallen asleep in bed, phone charging on the nightstand. I hesitated. Then I opened it. There she was. Mandy. Her name in big, bubbly letters with a red heart next to it. I clicked. Can't wait until it's just us. She doesn't get you like I do. I found a little place in Asheville. It has a hot tub and floor-to-ceiling windows. Tell Jake slowly. Don't ruin his graduation. My breath caught. She knew about Jake. She knew about me. She knew everything. And I knew enough. I closed the iPad. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, not from pain, but from clarity. Like a wire pulled too tight, finally letting go. That was the night I stopped being Ethan's wife and started being his reckoning. The next day, I booked a consultation with a divorce attorney. Her name was Marla Hayes. Small office. Big energy. She wore glasses on a chain and had a voice like gravel. She didn't blink when I told her everything. When I showed her the prenup, she smirked. "You're lucky he was cocky enough to draft this. It'll be his undoing." Clause 16, infidelity equals forfeiture of majority marital assets. Clause 17, remains in effect throughout the duration of the marriage, unless nullified by mutual written agreement. He never nullified it. Marla asked one question. "Do you want to ruin him?" I didn't even pause. "No. I want to free myself and make sure he never gets to rewrite my story." We got to work. I backed up all the evidence onto 2 hard drives. Hired a digital forensics guy, a friend of a friend, who confirmed Ethan had booked multiple trips under fake names. Mandy sometimes used her middle name, Elise. Clever. We froze a joint account just in case. Filed paperwork quietly. Ethan never noticed. He was too busy playing house in hotel suites and leaving scented receipts in his suit pockets. All the while, I smiled at dinner. Played nice. Let him believe he was in control. I even let him think the graduation party was his idea. That was the best part. Ethan had an ego the size of Texas. And I knew, deep down, he'd want to make his announcement in the most public, theatrical way possible. So I handed him the stage. I planned everything, the guest list, the venue, the music. I picked the caterer who made his favorite scallops just so he'd feel extra comfortable. He never suspected a thing. The night before the party, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan snoring softly beside me. I reached under the bed, pulled out the folder, now thick with documentation, and slipped it into my purse. The last thing I did before falling asleep? I texted Marla. "Game time tomorrow. Have everything ready." She replied with one word. Loaded. I woke up at 6 a.m. and brewed coffee. Jake wandered into the kitchen with his graduation sash tangled in his hair, still half asleep. "Mom, can you iron this?" I took it from him with a smile. My hand brushed his, warm, full of life, full of promise. And in that moment, I knew, I wasn't doing this out of revenge. I was doing it to protect my future, and his. I watched Jake eat cereal on the couch. Ethan walked in later wearing that smug look he always wore when he thought he was 2 steps ahead. "Big day," he said. "The biggest," I replied, sipping my coffee. "Let's make it unforgettable." He chuckled. "We will." If only he knew. By the time we got to the rooftop, the sun was setting and the bay sparkled like it was blessing the chaos about to unfold. Guests arrived. Laughter. Champagne. Music. Then Ethan stood up. Tapped his glass. Said the words that would implode his world. And I? I smiled. Because I knew what was coming next. He stood there, envelope in hand. Still holding the flute of champagne in his other, though I noticed now it trembled slightly. The rooftop was silent. The string quartet had gone mute. Someone turned off the speaker, maybe instinctively sensing the drama unfolding didn't need a soundtrack. Ethan stared at the envelope like it might contain a bomb. And in a way, it did. I stood about 10 feet away, calmly sipping my drink. My purse rested back on the white linen tablecloth like a sniper rifle freshly holstered. Ethan's fingers trembled as he unsealed the flap. He reached inside and pulled out the stack of papers, thick, neatly stapled, professional. For a second, confusion clouded his face. Then he saw the words printed at the top of the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage, Rachel Brooks versus Ethan Brooks. His eyes scanned the headers, flipping through, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Statement of Assets. Photographic evidence. Itemized bank transactions. Timeline of correspondence. I watched his face change in real time, like watching a building collapse in slow motion. First came disbelief. Then the flush of embarrassment. Then rage. "What the hell is this?" he barked, his voice louder than it should have been. Guests stiffened. A few stepped back. Some pretended to suddenly be very interested in the appetizer table. I took a slow step forward, never breaking eye contact. "That," I said with a calmness that unnerved him, "is your new beginning. Just not the one you planned." He looked at the crowd, then back at me. "You did this now? You humiliated me in front of everyone?" I raised an eyebrow. "You announced you were leaving me, Ethan." I just added the paperwork. Ethan wasn't used to being outmaneuvered. For 25 years, he was the charming one. The likable guy. The smooth talker who could turn any situation around with a joke and a wink. But now he looked like a man cornered. No script. No smirk. Just panic. He thumbed through the pages like he might find a magic clause that made it all go away. And then, he found it. Clause 16 of the prenup. Infidelity. Forfeiture of marital assets. His lips moved as he reread it. He looked up, paled. "You can't use this. The prenup's expired." It's still valid," I interrupted. "Read Clause 17. It remains enforceable unless mutually nullified in writing." "We never nullified it. You insisted I sign it 25 years ago." Funny how things come around. His mouth opened. Then closed. Then opened again. People around us didn't know where to look. Some stared openly. Others stared at the floor, cheeks flushed with secondhand embarrassment. I took a step closer and whispered, just for him. "Everything's frozen, Ethan. The joint accounts. The offshore stash you thought I didn't know about. The brokerage account. Oh, and the lake house? Already in my name." His jaw twitched. I could see the vein in his temple throb. "You planned this." "All of it," he hissed. "No, Ethan. You planned this." I just responded. He stared at the crowd, desperate for an ally. But no one met his gaze. Not his law partner. Not his golf buddy. Not even his sister, who stood rigid, arms crossed. And then, like a ghost emerging from smoke, Mandy appeared. I hadn't expected her to show up. But there she was, at the edge of the rooftop, tall, blonde, designer heels, and panic written all over her face. She must have heard the yelling from the lobby. She rushed over to Ethan. "What's happening?" she whispered. He didn't answer. She grabbed the papers from his hand, scanned them, her lips moving silently. "Wait," she said, louder now. "Wait, what is this? These accounts are frozen?" Ethan tried to calm her, put a hand on her arm, but she pulled away. "You said we'd get the down payment next week." I stepped forward, uninvited. "I'm afraid that's not happening," I said to her, tone even. "See, he used joint funds for your hotel weekends. That's marital misappropriation. Illegal. He can't touch any of it." Mandy stared at Ethan. "You lied to me?" "It's complicated," he said. "You said you'd taken care of it." Rachel, she. He thought I didn't know, I said, cutting in. He thought I wouldn't notice the flights to Miami. The spa bookings. The wire transfers to your account ending in 8279. But I did. All of it. Mandy looked like she'd been slapped. You told me you loved me. I did. Ethan snapped. You told me you had a plan. I did. But I didn't know she'd be smarter than you? I offered, sweetly. That was when Mandy backed away. She dropped the papers at his feet like they were burning her hands. Her eyes, once full of dreams, were now dark and terrified. You're not just broke, she muttered. You're stupid. And then she turned and walked away. Not one person followed her. Ethan stood there, alone now, papers at his feet, his world collapsing around him. His shoulders slumped. Please, he said, voice cracking. Rachel, let's talk. Not here. Please. I tilted my head. You wanted a stage, Ethan. I gave you one. He knelt to gather the papers, now scattered and wrinkled. I watched him. This wasn't revenge. This was reckoning. He looked up one last time. I didn't think you'd do this. I didn't think you would cheat on me with someone who calls you daddy and thinks Roth IRAs are a type of protein shake. A few people chuckled. A few gasped. He said nothing more. I turned, looked at Jake, my son, our son, standing quietly by the railing, arms crossed. Mom, he said softly. You okay? I'm free, I said. He smiled. Not a big one. But the kind that said, I see you. Then I walked away. Down the stairs. Out into the warm Charleston night. I didn't look back. He had made his announcement. And I'd made mine. Only mine came with signatures, clauses, and consequences. The silence in my car felt almost holy. Not the silence of sadness. Not even shock. It was the silence of something ending, finally, and something better just beginning. I drove with the windows down. The warm South Carolina air tangled my hair as I cruised through downtown Charleston. Streetlights flickered on, one by one, as if the city was gently applauding me for walking away. From the rooftop, from him, from the version of me who had stayed too long. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt. Every nerve in my body was awake for the first time in years. The house looked the same when I pulled into the driveway, white shutters, brick steps, the porch swing Ethan never fixed. I'd stared at this house for decades thinking we built it together. But that was a lie I had long since stopped believing. I stepped inside and turned on the lights. The air smelled faintly like eucalyptus, the diffuser Jake got me for Christmas last year. I smiled. Small things suddenly felt like anchors. The framed photo of our wedding still sat on the mantel. I didn't rage. I didn't throw it. I simply picked it up, studied it for a long moment, then placed it face down inside a drawer. That night, I slept in the middle of the bed, something I hadn't done in 25 years. And I didn't dream of Ethan once. The next few weeks blurred into a whirlwind. Lawyers. Hearings. Letters from his attorney that read more like apologies than arguments. He tried to contest the prenup. Claimed coercion, misunderstanding, emotional duress. But the judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who didn't blink once during his lawyer's whining, simply flipped to Clause 17, read it aloud, and said, "This contract is clear. The respondent's actions violated its terms. We proceed." Just like that, Ethan's defense crumbled. The ruling came fast and final. Full ownership of the house transferred to me. My business accounts untouched. 70% of our joint assets. His accounts? Frozen pending audit. Mandy? Long gone. My attorney, Marla, smiled when we walked out of the courthouse. That, she said, was art. I didn't celebrate with champagne. I didn't throw a party. I got to work. I'd spent years managing Ethan's books, handling budgets, investing, stretching dollars, making smart calls while he played the visionary. Now it was time to invest in myself. I took a small loan, leased a space downtown, and hung a sign out front. Rachel Brooks, Financial Clarity for Women. My mission was simple: help women like me. Women who had been blindsided, blind-shelved, or blindsided again, who didn't know where to start, who were scared to look at their bank statements, who had handed their lives over to men who no longer deserved them. I offered private sessions, free workshops on budgeting post-divorce. I partnered with local therapists. I taught women how to build escape funds, read contracts, and spot the red flags we're told to ignore. And women came. They came scared, embarrassed, heartbroken. They left informed, supported, and dangerous. Jake came by often. At first, he didn't know what to say. I didn't push him. One night, we sat on the porch, mint tea in hand, fireflies dancing on the lawn, and he said, "You didn't deserve any of that, Mom." I smiled softly. Sometimes life breaks you open so the real you can finally breathe. He looked down, fidgeted with the tea bag string. Dad keeps texting me. Says he's sorry. That he wants to make things right. You don't have to respond, I said. That's not your burden. Jake nodded. Then, after a pause, I think you're the strongest person I know. And just like that, every legal victory paled in comparison. That sentence was worth more than any ruling. It came on a Thursday evening. The office was quiet. I was finishing a report when my phone buzzed. Ethan Brooks. I stared at the screen. Let it ring twice. 3 times. Then I answered. Rachel. His voice was gravel. Hollow. Smaller. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Still, I said nothing. I lost everything. Mandy, the apartment, my job. Jake won't talk to me. I don't blame him. I don't know how to start over. Finally, I spoke. You don't start over by calling the person you destroyed and asking them to help rebuild you. He went silent. I'm not angry anymore, Ethan. But I'm also not your safety net. I stopped being your lifeboat the moment you set fire to the ship. He let out a choked breath. Do you think there's any chance? No. I said it firmly. Kindly. But with absolute finality. There was a door, Ethan. It's closed now. Locked. And I'm not standing behind it anymore. Then I hung up. A year later, my business was thriving. I had 2 assistants, a client waitlist, and a podcast launching next month. But more importantly, I had peace. I traveled. I started painting again. I got a dog named Penny. I signed up for a women's hiking retreat and didn't worry about who'd take care of dinner while I was gone. And sometimes, on quiet nights, I'd reread a letter Jake wrote me before leaving for college. You didn't just show me how to survive. You showed me how to fight back with grace. That's the kind of man I want to become. I keep that letter in my desk drawer. Right where the prenup used to be. People ask me if I regret not leaving sooner. But the truth is, I left the moment I remembered who I was. I used to think holding a family together at all costs made me strong. But now I know. The real strength is knowing when to walk away and choosing yourself even when no one else does. I didn't just win a legal battle. I didn't just punish a liar. I rebuilt a life from the ashes, and it turned out more beautiful than anything I'd left behind.
That's it for today's story on Life Reflections. I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or a story of your own. If you enjoyed this, give a like and subscribe to keep the reflections coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.